That's what kind of makes it exciting, but it can also be scary too, because you're sitting there on your couch watching TV and all of a sudden you feel like you just got a fever of 110 out of nowhere. Boom, heat in the body. Other times it'll be sleep, where no matter what you do, no matter what time of day it is, all of a sudden you know you just got to fall asleep or you're going to fall down. It's like somebody pulled the plug on your energy system and you say, oh. That's because your consciousness is actually transferring. It's writing DNA strand template 4 into D4. You're going astral to pick up more information on something important. And literally your soul level of identity is saying, sorry, but I know you need to do that right now, and your boss probably won't be happy, but this is more important right now. Gotta go. The real fun one, and we're still doing this one, is the, 3 a.m. I have more energy now than I do all day. Where you're like manic at 3 a.m. for some reason. Now, you can run to the doctor and say, I really have insomnia, I'm having a terrible time, I haven't slept. Now, it's really hard if you have a 9-to-5 job or a 9-to-10 job where you depend heavily on that 8-hour sleep at night. Because there are different cycles of frequency that enter the body during the day and during the evening. The reflected lunar light, the solar light that's reflected to become moonlight, has different qualities and frequencies than does the direct sunlight in the daytime. So the body, once it gets on, it's, oh yeah, we're activating, right? And you're doing it under the divine blueprint, which is the right sequence, and the shields will activate. That means your own soul, oversoul, and avatar level of self are actually guiding the process. There will be times when you need lunar frequency. There will be times when you need solar frequency. And it may not coincide with your regular 9-to-5 or 9-to-10 schedule. Now, I've had the manic runs lately at night. I seem to be up at like 3 a.m., and this is when I've been clearing this thing. I'd wake up 3 a.m. and cough for an hour and a half because I've been just clearing a cold. The cold itself, and I know this, I know we picked it up. It's like some kind of weird flu thing that responds to, finally we broke down and took some penicillin for it because it was so bad. But I recognized it was a clearing, and it still is. It's a clearing between the 4th chakra, the 5th chakra, and the 6th chakra, which has to do with 4th, 5th, and 6th, DNA strand activation and clearing. So there's all sorts of weird symptoms you can get. Now, I happen to go through a clearing cycle at 3 a.m. for some bizarre reason. I wake up and cough. But I don't worry about it because I realize what it is. It's getting better, and so is as. You may find yourself getting a cold or getting a this ailment or a that ailment. When you get sick, we've been taught to go, oh, this is terrible, I'm sick, sickness is a bad thing. When you tell yourself that, you really get yourself worked up and tied in a knot. What sickness is the body trying to rebalance itself to health. It's saying, ooh, there's something in there that's unnatural to my template that I need to clear. So when you get a manifest sickness, it's actually the body is taking an opportunity to clear something out that's not good for it. Now, if the body doesn't have the frequency support it needs, that can be, people die from illnesses all the time on this planet. If they had their full D12 frequencies running, that wouldn't happen. It would just transmute it. We're bringing back our ability to transmute illness as we activate DNA. But it takes a while to generate that much D12 frequency in the body before you can go and immediately cure your own cancer or anything like that. If we have diseases in the body is trying to heal itself. Some people heal themselves, and their souls know this. By having an illness that is so severe, they know they'll drop the body. But they cleared it from the template. So they know that the next body form that they move into and incarnate into will be one at a much higher frequency level without the distortions, which means they might be able to ascend out of density 1, dimensions 1, 2, and 3 systems, and into the next level up and get out of the gross matter density systems down here. So there's a whole set of ideas that go along with understanding the big stuff like stargates and black holes that have to do with simple growth in the way we phrase things or frame things to ourselves. We can look at something on the outside and identify it as a calamity, or we can identify what its purpose is truly in eternal life evolution. It's only when we're afraid that we're actually truly deep down not eternal after all that we get attached, overly attached, to the outside dramas, because we're afraid we don't have anything else. When we're sitting in our heads these days, since 25,500 BC, trying to figure out who we are, where we came from, because we don't remember any of the other parts of ourselves, it seems like this here is the only thing that's real. But when we begin, and the first stage really is when your astral consciousness starts to kick in. And you start to realize, oh my gosh, I was floating above my body. I saw it down there, but I was wide awake, and I could like zip through walls and windows, and I went and I spied on somebody who was really cool. You know, I found I could do these things. Your consciousness has the ability to, it is a multidimensional consciousness. The fact that the gene code has not been functioning properly because the templates have been blocked by the implants, some of which are the Metatronic implants, that is what keeps us imprisoned. We have the ability and the power, if we know our anatomy and we understand how to use our 3D minds to run frequency, we can clear those blockages in our template and get more and more progressively of our higher dimensional consciousness, our soul, our oversoul, our avatar, our rishi, and our ascendant master level of self and consciousness into our bodies, progressively healing our bodies as we go. And each one of us that does that heals a part of the planetary grids and a part of the human grids. Every species of animals, every species of plant or bug or rock or person, being, has what's called a tribal shield template. If you look at a template, scalar shield, as the template that holds the program for what matter form is going to manifest. Everyone that's of the same species has certain codes, certain mathematical programs in their shields that are common. And some of them are different. That's where you get individuality within a species. Now, every one of us that becomes more healed, that brings in more higher consciousness, that begins to activate our flame bodies, begins to affect the tribal shield, because our personal shields are literally ensconced within the larger tribal shield, and that is ensconced within the larger planetary shield, which is part of the solar shield that all the planets in our solar system is a part of, which are part of the galactic shield, up and up and up all the way. So every time, each one of us count what we do with ourselves and our frequency. As we heal ourselves, we help to heal each other, we help to heal the planet, the other life forms on the planet. So I'm wondering where we're going to move and what. It's almost like we move through a labyrinth of data when we do these workshops, where first we're here and then we move over here. It's a weaving. It's like making a weaving, like a beautiful Indian rug, where you have to put the right colors next to each other, and you have to align them mathematically the right way to get the right patterns to come out by these little strings being woven together. And every audience requires a different Indian rug because each one of you have a unique signature, energy signature, shield signature of consciousness, which means each person will understand the information in a different way or be unable to understand it if it's put in a certain way. So we're going to, together, through the period of the next 2 days, try to co-create a group work of art. Az and I will be part of that, but we're not the weavers. We're only 2 of the weavers. All of the weavers are in this room, because it requires each one of us to speak, to learn, to understand, to share, to be sensitive, to try to feel, if you can't understand the words, to try to feel the frequency beneath them. Together we can create a beautiful Indian rug, or maybe it's an Iani rug, that will hold together the information that will be given in a way that can become personally useful to you. And each one of us, when we go home, will take a little piece of that rug, almost like a holographic replica, because the big rug will stay. But we'll take a little piece of it that's our piece of the rug, of the weaving of information, that's big enough for us right now. And your piece will be different than your neighbor's. But there's a piece for each of you here that you were guided here to bring home. And we will do our best during the process of this workshop to do our role in helping to weave those beautiful rugs. I would like you to know that we care very much about all of you, regardless of what walk of life you're from. I don't care if you've been Metatronic. I don't care if you've been doing Flame and Blue Sword for the last 40 years and I just terrified you to death. I didn't mean to terrify you. All right, there is hope. Flame body activation. There isn't judgment toward the races who have chosen a path of the fallen ways. There is, however, consequence for them. They're loved by the founders. They're loved by Source. There's no damnation. They're the ones that created the angry, wrathful gods that put fire, people in fire and brimstone and stuff. Any nice guy doesn't do that. That's just having a temper tantrum when you have a lot of power to push around. There is huge love in the teachings that we carry. I don't want the love to be missed because of the technical data that's needed to be given. But if I have to get accused, like I sometimes am, by people who are used to being patted on the head and their egos perked up by all that sweet light and love talk, if I have to get them angry with me by saying, well, the love is here and I will do my best to communicate that to you. Feel the frequency, and if you can't, you should ask yourself why. Because it's huge, the love that we carry and the people that we work with carry. But what's more important right now? Patting people's ego to make them feel safe so they can have more security blankets to hold on to and to put over their eyes and hide behind? Or loving them enough to tell them the way it is and give them the technologies that aren't that hard, that they can begin to heal themselves and help themselves, and if nothing else, protect themselves from what's coming. That's where the love is. We're willing to be unpopular in the New Age movement. Oh boy, are we. It's like we almost created our own, because they couldn't stand us. There's so many infiltrate people in the New Age movement that are running groups and zapping people in workshops that, it's amazing. It was a question?
Can you talk about some of the specifics of what groups?
I've already dropped a few hints. Okay. I've made hints like the Clarion Call, which is, you can look that up. I think it's C-L-A-I-R-O-N. There are hints like anything attached to the being called Thoth. Look that up. Anything, see, I could give a list, but A, I won't do it on camera if I ever do it. Why? Or in print? Why? Well, do we need to be taken down right now and put in jail for slander? We're not stupid. Yeah. We have no gripe with the people who are the mouthpieces for the fallen ones. It's the fallen ones' agenda we have a gripe with. We don't have a need to point fingers at the individuals, but we will at times name some of the movements. It's attached to the Thoth material. It's attached to anything that identifies with what's called the Alpha Omega Melchizedek order. All right? I won't name names of individuals who are involved because that's not important. This is true. As you're just pointing out, and we teach people to listen on the inside instead of turning to experts on the outside to find the answers. Now, if we know some things about who's who, and we know a lot about who's who, believe me, I wanted to run when I found out. Well, there's an ability you can cultivate inside of yourself. And it starts with a simple question. The ability to decide and identify for yourself whether a system is serving a true Christos empowerment agenda, or whether it's using Christos lip service to give you an agenda that's going to take you down into a black hole, but they're not about to tell you that. There's one key element. Where do they ask you to put your power, or tell you to put your power? Are they telling you to call upon the name of Archangel this or Archangel that? Are they telling you to say the 500 sacred names of God and everybody else? Are they telling you to kiss the feet of this guru or that guru? Or to put a picture of this guru or that guru on your door of your refrigerator so he can beam frequency and protection at you all the time? Are they telling you to channel this being and that being? All of this stuff is telling you to put your power elsewhere. The Christos, the true Christos teachings, tell you that you have right within you your inner Christos. This is what the being that was called Jesus, actually his name was Jeshua, he had come with his group of indigo Grail line children to bring that knowledge of the inner Christos back. So anything that's teaching you, even stuff that's teaching you to worship a symbol of a dead Christ on a cross, is teaching you to put your power outside of yourself to worship somebody else, which is saying to yourself, I have no direct connection to God. It is telling you to con yourself into thinking somebody else has your knowledge, your truth, and your ability to be safe, that you have no personal connection to God. So if you can know these little tricks of the trade that are underneath and woven in between their pretty words, where are they asking you to put your power? Are they telling you the mechanics and the anatomy of your interdimensional body so you can remember how to get yourself back in the body so you can embody your God connection? Or are they telling you God is out there somewhere else? away from you. And you got to kiss somebody's toes, knees, or nose in order to get up there to see him again. All right? Where are you putting your power is the answer, the big answer, to the question of who's who out there. Thank you. And also, answering it that way keeps us out of jail. Because we can't afford to be sued. And the truth of it is, the name things, at times I will share in intimate circles of friends and things what we know. But after a while it becomes very obvious. You will develop after a while, particularly with flame body activations, you will just be able to sense the frequency. You will be able to tell by holding a book, you won't even have to open it, what the energy signature is, whether it's coming from up or down. So naming names becomes a moot point. It's just helpful in the beginning, before people realize that they have the sensitivity in themselves to develop that ability. There are some big tricksters out there. Basically, we suggest don't follow any movements, including ours. We don't want followers. We're here to share. Gurus have followers. Priests maybe have followers. We don't look for followers. We look for people just like ourselves, who are avatars in bodies just dying to figure out how to wake back up, so we can get the rest of us in body to figure out what we're here for, to figure out what to do about it. You are all avatars. We all have that part of ourselves, Christos avatars. Even the fallen ones originally started as Christos avatars, and they still have a part of themselves that never fell. Whether they'll ever connect to that part of themselves again is their choice, because their Christos avatar will not force that choice on them. But each one of you are no less than us, and we're no more than you. But we're all pretty great. We need to remember. This is why there's one being I want you to follow, and that's the truth of the wholeness of you. And that will be a different being for each one of you. But it will share a common community that's called the Universal Christos. And beyond that, we have the levels where we're part of the Rishi collectives, the Brenna Rishi. We all have parts of ourselves there. So as we move through some very challenging, some of it's going to be funny. I mean, you know what I've noticed that's really strange? For the people that are working like the other agendas, let's say, they get really upset with me for revealing the history. Oh boy, did that upset them. Some of the, like, say, the Flaming Blue Sword people and stuff, right? They got really upset when we started revealing the history from the records. They didn't want that revealed because it shows who they are and what they're up to. But they'll throw all sorts of accusations. Oh, they're just fear-based teachings. Oh, where's the love? This kind of stuff. The love is right here in the frequency. But for us supposedly just teaching scary, fear-based stuff, we've had more people laughing their way out of our workshops, being hit with some of the most heaviest, biggest, most scientific, most broad spiritual information they've ever encountered, and they're joking and they're laughing and they're feeling good when they leave. We must be doing something right. Because we're teaching you how big the drama is, but we're teaching you that you're even bigger. And you're part of a Christos, and you're part of a cosmos that's bigger, that has the ability to move through things where fallen angels fear to tread. We don't have to be afraid. And we will never teach you to be afraid. And do you know why we won't teach you to be afraid? You can only give what you really have inside. We are fearless. We are fearless because we got it. We know. We feel the reality of the living Christos inside. And it doesn't matter. Christos isn't a word that just belonged to Christians. They borrowed it. We'll get into that a little bit probably tomorrow. But there is a joy and a freedom and a trust that comes when more and more of you, your true self awakens inside of you, your Christos self. Where you begin to realize, it's funny, you get to a point where you just like throw all the books on your bookshelf out. Because you know you'll never look at them again. Because the information starts to come from inside. It's a lot easier to move that way too. Books are really heavy to carry around. The books are useful to get you through where you realize you got it inside. There may come a time, if things get weird and wacky in the next few years, next year, we've got to move quickly And it's going to be very difficult to take anything with us. If that happens, and we know we have it inside already, it's like, where did I put that file? I know that book's in there somewhere in my cellular memory, in your template. You do have it. You might not have immediately, every time you demand it, the answer to something. But if you realize it's in there, if you can ask the question, it implies you already have the answer. That's a little trick that most people don't realize. That if you can come up with a question, it implies you already have the other side, the other half of that energy signature, which is the answer. The question came up so you could give the answer back to yourself. Now you might find it reflected to you out here, where you actually project it into the hologram and somebody else comes up and answers the question for you. But when you start to realize the dynamic that's happening, you'll say, well, why don't I just directly manifest it? Okay, get into that space. I know the answer. I will let it come now. You know? There's a lot of tricks in using your own psyche that you can learn to make your process easier and more joyful. But the one most important thing is to remember right now you have inside of you everything you need. You have an inner Christos. You have your direct connection to Source. You don't need any dogma, any book, any priest, anybody, any hail in this, hail in that of things you can't see either, any channel to do it for you. You have it. You just need a little bit of reminding about where your parts are so you can remember how to use them. That's all we're teaching you. We're just giving you back a gift that we were given by the Eoni. The reason we do what we do, Az and I, now Mac, was Speaker 3, Marianne Calloway back there. Yes, I have to do that. It's part of official protocol. We speak because we were given a gift, and we struggled to wake up too. I'm a what? What's an Eoni? How do you spell that? Right? What was that word, Melchizedek? What? You know, and we all start with, yeah, I remember I was a Melchizedek for a while because I couldn't remember how to spell the rest of it. You know? Now, we'll get into Melchizedek's. There's Melchizedek's, the Holy Order of the Unisai. The Melchizedek cloister is actually, again, a name is a tonal resonance signature, the verbal translation of a tonal vibration. Melchizedek has to do with, it's not a being, it's not some flaming blue guy that flies through the sky and calls himself Captain Melchizedek, because they've got those too and they're not the real thing. All right. Jeez. They make pretty pictures to hang on your wall, though. The word Melchizedek is an ancient signature that has to do with the primal coding of the sound and light fields that this particular 15-dimensional time matrix was formed on. So it's simply like a family name way up on the Ascendant Masters levels of all of the consciousness in this time matrix. We all came through the different levels. We call it stair-step creation. To get into manifestation, you have to project yourself as consciousness, as say a burst of consciousness, has to go down in frequency, leaving a piece of itself every step of the way. That's how you get these different levels of identity. Now, to get down here implies you have all those other steps up there. The people in this time matrix came out of the collective that was called the Melchizedek collective. The Melchizedek cloister, the word cloister got put on it to make a distinction when some of those that had fallen from that collective went and took the teachings and twisted them, the black hole guys. They were originally part of our matrix. They took literally the signature and the teachings and twisted them to use for a false creation. The whole story of Lucifer and all of that kind of stuff, you know, challenging God, wanting to make his own universe. Well, that's really a very kindergarten level version of a large interdimensional drama that took place between massive amounts, massive groups of founders' races, ones that were trying to help others that had fallen, and fallen ones that couldn't recognize their connection to Source anymore, who tried to take over the local universe in order to be their own creator gods. That's how they ended up in a black hole matrix, and they're still trying to do it. But we have, so like if you don't like the word Melchizedek, you don't have to either. It's like eventually someday you'll realize, oh yeah, it was a family name. It's like you don't have to be a Melchizedek or identify with it. But the best thing to do is, with the word, be aware there's a distinction. There are two families. The Holy Order of the Unisai, Sacred House of One, which are the ones that retain the original teachings of the Law of One, which we are all connected, which are the teachings of a free will, love-based system that is not in polarity, conflict, and drama. The ones that teach freely ascension teachings and don't hide them and twist them so they can manipulate people with them. That is the Order of the Unisai. means the point of all union. That's what that word means. It's an ancient Anahazi, which is a Elohim word, an Elohai Elohim word, not a fallen Elohim word. That means the point of all union. It is another way of expressing source or creator or God or whatever you want to call that central point of consciousness and eternal life and intelligence that all of us are manifestations of. The Melchizedek cloister is the Holy Order of the Unisai, and we represent those teachings. They're called the teachings of the Emerald Covenant. There are various other Melchizedeks running around on the planet right now. Most of them affiliate with what's called the Alpha Omega Order. This has to do with Alpha and Omega Centauri, the planetary systems that have fallen planetary shields that are directly open to the black hole systems. So there are Melchizedeks coming up from the black hole systems and embodying here and teaching false ascension teachings. So it's good to know the distinction between those names. Boy, was that one of the things that made them mad. We actually published it. We actually let them know, because people had to know, because they were being tricked. And worst of all, they were being tricked under the names of the people who were actually trying to help them, which is like a slap in the face. Yeah. There's a drama going on that we have the ability right now to make peace with, to move through, and to be very, very aware as we go through. There's going to be things. I mean, things are happening very fast at this point. They're going to happen even more quickly if certain things take place as opposed to others on the 27th of May. This is revealed tonight, in fact. The first time I knew something big was coming for this workshop, as far as the revelation of something. I could feel it, but I couldn't access it because it was on security clearance. By the end of this workshop, we'll talk about all sorts of things: black holes, healing the shadow body, activating the Amareya flame body, and activating the planetary Amareya arcs. This has to do with the event of the beast activation and the flaming blue sword, fire sword initiation that's coming on May 27th of 2003. Because there are certain events that can create a protection field here that need to be orchestrated on May 27th of 2003. It's going to be a calling that's put out to all indigos and humans on the planet that'll listen. Now, I don't know what the exercises are yet that they're going to ask us to use, but there is a process of helping to anchor the planetary Amareya flame body, not just the arcs. And we were told, and this was like, oh boy, they're serious. They've never ever said this before. They said, well, we're kind of like on evac alert. Now, what they said was that because of the events that you will know what they are, because it's like technical stuff that I still have to get off the computer, literally given to me in the last 2 days. If certain things go well on May 27th with anchoring the countering frequencies that will create protection from the blue sword activation, then there will be one course of events that will take place, and we will be progressively prepared for those. Those will be much more stable and peaceful than the other course of events. We were told that if the events are not successful of anchoring the frequencies in the flame bodies, which requires people with flame bodies activated to be able to activate those frequencies, we will be on 3-month evac alert. That doesn't mean in 3 months they'll evac. That means for 3 months they will evac. Because at the end of 3 months, there's going to be a problem. They've never, ever, ever said that or given that specific information before. I'm sorry? Say. All right. If the Guardian's plans are successful on May 27th of 2003, and that happens to be when we've all been called, like a whole bunch of us have been called to go to Paxos, Greece. We're doing a major workshop there, and we're going to be taught a lot of this, and we're spending all night out on this really cool uninhabited island in the ocean and stuff. Yeah, that night. We're going to be asked to help anchor frequencies that will create for everybody, even the ones that have chosen the path of falling, a much more peaceful and easy time. If that isn't successful, see, there's a problem. The fallen ones and their lovely beast mechanism, well, they almost outsmarted themselves. You know how you can let a beast out of a cage and then go, oh my God, what'd I do? Well, they kind of didn't have done that. Because there are certain things happening with the beast frequencies now that they thought they would be able to do one thing that had to do with taking over one of the inner earth temples to stop the frequencies of the what are called Amareya arc frequencies that are going to come down and protect whatever part of the grids can be protected. They thought they could stop that. Because they can't stop that, that goes on autopilot too, which is the protection frequencies that come in. They're going to implode their own black hole if they don't get help from guess who? They always end up, even when they're trying to destroy us, they get themselves boxed in corners that's going to hurt them, but also, you know, people on the other side. And they always ask for help, and guardian races they always try to help, you know, heal, whatever. So we are being asked to participate in a huge healing mission. If that healing mission fails and we're unable to activate, like anchor certain frequencies on the planet, it's going to bring a little problem up through a lock in our system. It's a galactic, what's called a galactic lock. Now there are gates and there are locks. Locks kind of work like gates, but they hop between dimensional bands through what are called the void spaces. There's going to be a little visitor that pops up in between our asteroid belt and Jupiter. It's the thing that was called wormwood in the Bible, and some of you that follow the work already know what that body is. It's an Nibiruan battle star that's connected in a direct orbit with the planet Nibiru. It is a planet that was forced into an artificial orbit. That's why it's not our 12th planet in our system anymore like it used to be. And it goes on an orbit that dips in between what was called the phantom matrix black hole and then comes back up for a cycle in ours. When Nibiru, the planet, goes out, wormwood, its counterbalance, comes in. That's how they keep the thing in its retarded orbit. Well, wormwood was originally created by phantom matrix races. The phantom matrix races were the ones that fell directly from this system. They weren't part of the larger black hole that had to do with another system as well. The Wesedex and the phantom black holes were two different ones. The phantom races thought it would be really cool to pull in part of the grids over here. So they created the setup of wormwood and Nibiru. And that setup was then taken over by the Wesedex, because boy, could that be useful. When the beast activates and the flaming blue sword currents come in and begin to enter our universal and galactic grids, it creates a pulsing current of D13 reverse that grabs a hold of wormwood's orbit and pulls it where it wants it to go instead of in its natural cycle that it would come in. It's intended to pull it up through the lock that exists in the asteroid belt, like between Jupiter, really, in the asteroid belt. Pulls it up there. It looks like it pops up behind the sun here. And then there's a particular orbit that Nibiru, literally Nibiru and wormwood would do when it was in its unnatural orbit, its original unnatural orbit, that didn't cause pole shift here, didn't cause harm here. Well, when that was taken over by the Wesedex, and they haven't tried this out yet. This was the grand hurrah, this final conflict drama, when they were going to see how well it would work. They would use the blue flame, or the blue sword currents, to expedite the movement of wormwood, pull it out of its orbit with Nibiru. Nibiru goes crashing, but not here. Nibiru is right now cycling through what's called the phantom matrix black hole system, so it will fall out of orbit there. But wormwood will be grabbed by the blue sword currents. It will be brought up on those currents into a totally different angle as it enters our system. And it is intended to be pushed first, come up behind the sun, come around, cut between Earth and the sun, and then do a second pass around this way. Do you have any idea, just on a regular physics level, of how magnetic forces affect each other? This thing's about 3 times the size of Earth. Can you imagine what that would do here? Now, it was the tool that was intended to be used by the Wesedex to create this fall. And interestingly, the reason it's always been a hotbed on Earth, a hotbed of this activity, why Earth is always getting picked on, Earth is universal Stargate 3. It holds at its core universal Stargate 3. Not just galactic Stargate 3, which it also holds that position. It is one of the universal, out of 12 universal Stargates, Earth is one. It's number 3, the D3, or third dimensional gate. And the fourth dimensional gate is our sun. They both hold the bottom position in what's called the Cosmic Templar or Cathara grid. And if you can take those two down, it creates a chain reaction all the way up. That's why all the activity is focusing here. So it's a big game at this point, and there's something we're being asked to do to help counteract the frequencies of the blue sword that are going to be coming in. You know what's really weird? The people, I won't again name names, but there's a certain person who's teaching certain ascended masters' teachings that are planning for the fourth battle of Armageddon to begin in May, because that's when they're going to be out anchoring the flaming blue sword. So we're being asked to bring in the counterbalance to that. And it's kind of funny, because at this point, the blue sword's coming in, and it's either going to come in balanced, or it's going to come in out of balance. The other side that used to consider themselves our adversaries because they were working a black hole agenda instead of an ascension agenda aren't even fighting with us anymore. There's something that we'll talk about probably, it'll float its way in, but probably technically on Sunday. It has to do with a new occurrence that took place on August 1st of 2002, and it was called the Truce of Loving Mercy. It's not a peace treaty. These guys don't want peace, and they certainly don't want anybody getting in the middle of their intended final conflict drama with each other. They're going to do their World War III stuff if they can help it, but if they don't blow everything up in the process before the fact. But the truce was almost like a ceasefire agreement, because they got themselves into a predicament where now that they've activated the beast, and it's going to set all this in motion, and it's going to bring wormwood flying up through, and wormwood's meant to do something, not just rip this system out of its orbit. It's meant to create what's called a solar red pulse. Now that's a natural occurrence under certain circumstances, but when you have damaged planetary and galactic grids and a red pulse runs, it literally reduces to space dust everything in its path. It vaporizes it because it shatters the template. We'll talk a little bit about red pulse, because the nasty little beast machine and its wormwood piece of apparatus was intended to build a solar red pulse. It's a pulse that builds inside the solar core, which would be inside Stargate 4, Universal Stargate 4, our sun, and it then leaps through the shields into the planetary core, into our planetary shields. When the shields are working naturally on a base 12 system, which means every frequency, every dimensional frequency has 12 sub-frequency bands in it. That's a base 12. A base 8 would be only 8 sub-frequency bands, right? So we're in a base 12 system. As long as our planetary grids are working and functioning, and the stargates are functioning on a base 12, there's no problem. The red pulse is a dimension 1 base 12 pulse that's supposed to work in a way that when the grids are working normally, there's an acceleration that takes place at certain ends of time cycles and beginnings of others on a planetary level, where the sun actually communicates this frequency to the templates of the planet, to the core shields of the planet, and it gives it just enough spark to jump in frequency to where it can go into a state of natural, what's called Merkaba. That allows it, the planet, as a planetary body, to hold its integrity, its physical integrity, turn into light, and jump into another time pulsation, so it can enter its next natural time cycle. Red pulse, when it's functioning normally, is a natural part of what's called an ascension planetary system, which means the planet can evolve up through the densities, just like it can go through stargates. The planet can eventually go through stargates itself, just like a body can evolve to do that. Now, when you're dealing with a system that has damaged grids, and it has part metatronically coded in reverse grids, which means part of its Merkaba is spinning in reverse already, and a red pulse comes through, that's when vaporization happens. The red pulse comes through the D12 subharmonics. Their sub-frequency bands are too much for the smaller base 8 templates to hold, so it shatters the whole template. When you shatter a template beneath the matter manifestation, you literally vaporize the matter manifestation. The whole beast apparatus, and this is information I didn't know about until literally I was getting it down right before we came here tonight. The red pulse, creating a controlled red pulse, was part of the purpose of the apparatus of the beast. Because through that controlled red pulse, they could shatter the planetary template. In shattering it, they could hold it in an electrostatic field, which is that net field that I talked about, and drag it in the net field, so it didn't shatter and just go all over it, drag it, the pieces, into the black hole system, and then reassemble them by bonding them to other structures that are running on the base 8 reversed coding of the Metatronic Wisadek system. It's an ingenious plan. I mean, talk about mad physicists running around wild. wow, these aren't just mad geneticists, these are mad physicists. These guys move planets, you know. So, the fallen ones, in their messings here, and in their hurry to make sure the Guardian groups didn't get enough healing work done in the grids. Because, see, we were running around, running D12 frequency into the planetary grids to heal them. And whenever we did that to a grid, neither side in their little war could take them anymore. They were healing them, and they were putting them under protection. That got them upset, because if we did that to enough of the planetary grids, eventually it would flip over to the whole thing through critical mass, so they wouldn't be able to even activate the beast. They couldn't do anything. So they activated it instead of waiting till 2011. They began the first activation cycle on March 23rd of 2002. And then they put in the second set of activation codes, which seals the deal, on July 24th. Now we're in the middle of a drama that we still have a job to do. Whether we're awake or not, whether we think we're an indigo, a human, or an Illuminati, doesn't even matter. We got a body. That body has the ability to run frequency to whatever degree. And that degree you're not going to find out right away. That has to do with you and your soul and your oversoul. But we all have, and even Illuminati races originally came from a Christos template. We all have the ability to work with these frequencies to whatever greater or lesser degree. And right now we have the ability to make the difference between whether or not we can get all of us out of this predicament. Because if wormwood comes up through the gates, through the lock, and into our system, and creates that red pulse, there will be a period. Now it will start to come up through the locks when the fire sword initiation happens. That fire sword initiation is phase locked in to the universal grids right now for May 27th, 2003 at 11:11 p.m. Now, wherever you are in the planet, it will be 11:11 p.m. when it hits your area. All right, there's a whole way of keeping time that has to do with grid resonance and vibrational compatibilities as opposed to external time. That is the point in time when wormwood is intended to be dragged up through the lock system and into our system. The people that are teaching Clarion Call and a few other master's trainings from the black hole system know that they're planning to bring wormwood in. They know it's planning to come in. They're actually doing workshops and things around it. Well, now a bunch of them are running for cover because what they didn't plan on was there's a certain amount of our planetary shields that phase locked into a particular frequency where they're stuck. They're partially Metatronic coded and they're partially Divine Blueprint coded. There's not enough Divine Blueprint for them to clear the Metatronic, and there's not enough Metatronic for them to get rid of it and reverse the Divine Blueprint. They're doing this and they're stuck. And what that's doing is creating a situation where they can't go up and they can't go down, which leaves a hole in the net. So when the flaming blue sword comes in from the Wissadite matrix, when the red pulse that it's intended to release through the tool of wormwood comes in, that red pulse is going to hit the part of the grids that can handle it, those grids that still have Divine Blueprint, which is a base 12, and it's going to run right through into the Metatronic side, and it's going to shatter the unnatural electrostatic field they have around. It's going to go right down their black hole, and it's going to shatter their template. The bloomin' idiots hung himself. I mean, jeez. Now, we don't want to see anybody get hurt. Guardians never do. Unfortunately, if that happens, there's also going to be a backlash that will come over into the protection fields of what are called the Trion Miage field and the bridge zone that our grids are being, linked into for support. Our grids will be okay because the frequencies of the Trion Miage field are stronger. However, what it will do to biological life forms that don't have 100% activation of 12-strand DNA is another story. If the red pulse gets released, it's going to cause real problems for both sides. If we're unable to anchor a sufficient amount of what is called the universal Amareya flame body on May 27th, on that evening, we're starting at 11:11 and we're supposed to go till 12:12 a.m. If we can anchor it in that period, it will do several things. First of all, it will help the Guardians. It will do the anchoring that's necessary here so Earth can do its part in shifting the angle that the blue sword comes into our universe. That will completely change everything, because when the angle shifts, it will actually send it through a gate connection where it goes right down, and as the wormwood thing is coming up through the lock, it will hit it with a reduced current, but enough to break the asteroid into many little pieces, which means it no longer has the strength, first of all, to generate red pulse by passing by the sun. Another thing is it will lose that twisted orbit that it was intended to go in. Now, we may get some pieces coming through, but that is what they've told me tonight, is the day that they're planning to blow up wormwood before it gets into our system. And it's right when it's passing through the locks that it needs to get it. That way it won't have fallout all over our system. If this works and we can anchor with it, what we're doing is anchoring a protection field on the planet, the Amareya body's protection field on the planetary level. If we can do that, there's going to be the beginning of what's called a separation of the planetary radial body. That's the only way either side is going to survive. It means the ones that are falling